one of the things we've been talking about, and there's some homework things. I want to pass out some things in just a minute. For those of you that don't have them, again, they're on the website on chucksugar.com. There's videos, and on the video, right above the video, are some links to the different homework things. So if you ever miss it or lose it or whatever and want to catch up, feel the freedom to do that. But we've been talking about, we're moving towards understanding conflict resolution, communication skills. Instead of just jumping through it and saying, here's some really neat skills to work on, we're really trying to go deeper so that we can understand who we're married to deeply, not just whatever some personality traits, and to understand ourselves. So a lot of you guys have been in this. We're on this self-awareness piece, and one of the things that we did last week, and kind of as a homework thing, was, oops, went too far, sorry. I'll catch back up. There we go. Is starting to take situations that happen, and instead of just, if we're angry or upset or sad about something, instead of just having this junk, like a ball of that kind of stuff, to actually start breaking it down to understand, if I'm angry with you, what's really going on inside of me. It doesn't release you from, maybe what you've done to hurt, but it helps me understand, is something kind of hijacking my emotions? Is there, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? So that when we come back together, and that's the next thing after self-awareness, really is more getting a heart change before we come back together and talk. It's pretty typical to the situation and the thoughts and the emotions. They happen very quickly. It can be a matter of seconds. It can be a matter of minutes. But usually when we snap back at somebody, or we give that jab, that's a pretty quick, automatic type thing. And so what I'm trying to do is get us to take a break, and in that break, pull away a little bit, not with the intention of isolating and not coming back, but take a break to take a little time alone to understand and go to God and say, what's going on in me? Why am I reacting this way? And so these are a lot of the emotions and stuff. And I wanted to kind of I wanted to move towards as I've told you guys, if we can get these 5 down, and I want to start working towards a more in-depth thing for you to go through in this time. In fact, Erica, will you hand out that one that you did on that chair right there? And the goal again was, there's so many questions on here. Now this will not work for every situation. So if you reach a question on this that doesn't apply to your situation, don't hurt yourself. Just skip it and move on to the next one that will. It's real hard to come up with a do this for every situation that can come up. But this handles a lot of them. But some of the key things in there are going to be handled that are going to be important, whether it's blaming, what am I taking responsibility for, those types of things. But I want to go through what's on your sheet, not in a lot of detail, because I don't want to beat it to death. I want y'all to go work on it, and then when we come back, now next week we won't have class because it's the Christmas don't have class day, but we'll pick up right back after that. So this will give you a couple of weeks to work through it. And what I recommend with couples as I'm working in counseling is, between when we meet, is when things go from a good mood to a bad mood, whether it's a hurt, a disappointment, a loss, anything, start working through this and trying to understand what's going on inside. Then when you come back to your partner, you can come in and own what's yours, and then you can say, whether you think your part was 2% or 90%, you can still come in and say, would you forgive me for saying what I said, or jabbing the way I did, or whatever, being late, or whatever that is, to where we're each moving towards each other in some kind of confession, apology, and forgiveness. The goal, again, is resolving conflicts, and we're not going to resolve them if we can't come and own our own stuff. And if we come in with strings attached, saying, okay, now I've owned mine, now let's hear yours, then now we're manipulating, and we're moving into, I'm apologizing and being very vulnerable because I want to hear what I really am trying to get you to apologize to me. And I would say, I think as we go in, most situations, it's rarely all one person's fault. I would say most of the time we each have played into this. But I think it would be normal to go in, if you were to go say, I'm really sorry I said this or did this or did this. You may hope for a response, and so you may have some disappointment and some sadness when that doesn't happen. But if you're doing it to get it, then our motives for doing this are really, it's a give to get. It's like giving someone a gift and waiting for their thank you note, and you don't get it. Now you're mad at them, and you may send them another gift and try this one more time. There's a cycle that I can show you sometime that we go through to try to, where the giving really isn't giving at all. It's really for ourselves as we give. So if we're giving an apology to get something, then we need to realize what we're doing and try to change that part of ourselves. But I'm just going to go through this very briefly. The first 5 of these things are what you've already seen, most of you, on the thing. What just happened? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What are my beliefs? What are my actions? But then we're going to go into what am I blaming my partner for? And that's where it's going to start getting a little bit more honest. And I don't want you to edit these things. I'm not suggesting you show it to your partner. I'm just saying this is for you to go alone and work through what's going on. What am I blaming my partner for? I'm blaming them for saying something very hurtful, or trying to put me down, or insulting me, or being sarcastic, or embarrassing me in front of people. Whatever that is, I blame them for that. But then, sometimes people say things that mean one thing to them, and we read it through a different grid, and we hear something completely different. So, what else could their action have meant, or their comment have meant? It starts to broaden it a little bit to go, maybe there's something I'm missing. I'm pretty sure I know what they meant, and that's usually how we see it. But there are always other things that it could have been. Maybe you called somebody and they never called you back, and you've come with the conclusion they hate me, they're blowing me off, they never liked me in the first place, and then you realize their phone was out of order, or they didn't get your email, or they didn't respond. So sometimes what did they mean? You're only going to know that if you actually talk to the person and say, here, I'm kind of struggling with something. I called last week or whatever, or I sent you this email, I never heard back from you. Help me understand what's going on. And then they can tell you. So instead of assuming and just going with that as if that's the fact, to begin to really ask more questions. And when I'm working with couples, the assumption piece to this of, I know what you meant, I know what you're thinking, I know what you believe, I know what you intended, it's going to almost always get us in big trouble. Even if we're right most of the time, it's still much more inviting and much more open, and the air will thin a little bit when you say, help me understand what you meant by that. Now, again, if our nonverbal communication doesn't match what our words are, if it's, well, help me understand, if it's that kind of an attitude, then we're really not coming with a real open heart of help me understand. We're really lying by our words. It's what were you thinking is really what we're saying, or how else could it be? But I think, again, as we come in with more of a changed heart, asking these types of questions will open it up. And a lot of times you're going to find that what you heard or what you assumed it was incorrect, that they really meant this instead of, maybe they even meant a compliment and you took it as a slam. And we'll get into more where that comes from. And so I'm just going through this so you'll know kind of how to do it. There's no wrong way to do this exercise other than just not doing it. Just give it a shot and see where it breaks down for you, and then come in a couple of weeks and let's talk about what worked, what didn't work, and let's tweak it a little bit so that this begins to work for you more and more. Again, am I assuming anything, or is there really evidence to support my perspective? Is there anything from, this is huge. Now if we go back to the genograms where we showed our family history and all those influences, and we go back to a hurts and loss timeline, which we did in here, now all of a sudden we kind of know our past. So when I ask the question, or when the question is asked of you, is there anything from my past hurts or losses that could be influencing my reaction? That's where you want to go. That's why the importance of understanding where we've been, so that I can go tap in and go, you know what, maybe I feel abandoned, but maybe that comes from when I actually was abandoned. Maybe I feel betrayed, but maybe that comes from when I really was betrayed or felt betrayed in this incident. So you'll find yourselves being triggered back to earlier times. I'm not saying let's go find the inner child. I'm just saying there's hurts from our past. We've all had losses. We've all had disappointments and hurts, and those things don't just disappear. And so when somebody else does something and it triggers that, I want to know what are my super sensitive areas that I keep going back to. When I hear something different than someone said, where am I going? Where am I getting that meaning from? What kind of grid has been developed? And we've talked about that a little bit. Now, but that's why this question is real important, is to begin to own in other words, if I were abandoned or betrayed as a child, and my wife is an hour late coming home from somewhere, whether she has good reasons or not, if I go to betrayal and abandonment and go off on her or accuse her of not telling the truth or being late, I mean, I need to go do some work and realize, my heightened sense of betrayal came from somewhere else. That's something from my past losses or hurts that I've now put on her. So to come back and say, I'm sorry that I reacted the way I did, it was cranked by this, but that's my stuff, that's not yours. Please forgive me for getting my junk all over you. And so we can work through that. So does that make sense? So then we're able to actually come to the table with a little bit more of a brokenness or a contrite heart instead of this arrogant, prideful, judgmental, let me tell you what you've done wrong and let me accuse you of everything. It's, let me own a little bit of my stuff, and that's a vulnerable thing. What you'll find is that vulnerability can create and usually creates intimacy in your relationship, because nobody wants an arrogant, narcissistic husband or wife that can't ever be wrong and always has to be right. We need to come in with our faults and our brokenness. Now, providing a safe place for that, well, instead of saying, well, I knew it was you, I'm just glad you finally figured it out, probably not going to get that vulnerability the next time around. You're going to get more self-protection. So this is a way for us to build safety and be honest and vulnerable. And then again, what should I take responsibility for? Maybe I need to take responsibility for some of the stuff from my past or from saying what I said, and I need to then what am I trying to see your perspective? That's a huge one. Rarely are we trying to see the other person's perspective when we've felt attacked. So that's why taking the break is so critical. If I can't take a break, I'm not trying to understand their perspective. I'm just trying to figure out, why are you trying to hurt me? I mean, why would you do that to me? But the alone time allows us to work through these things. And again, going to God saying, please reveal my sin to me, reveal my heart, reveal this brokenness, give me some insight so that I can, and then I can, as I understand where my stuff comes from, my anger starts to subside. And then I begin to come back in more, usually, hopefully, with a contrite heart and a little bit more apologetic. So trying to see their perspective is really more advanced, but it's really where we want to go. What would it be? I wonder what she's going through that she's this cranked up today. I wonder what he went through at work that he came home barking like he did. I mean, maybe it's not just face value. You came in with an attitude, and yeah, I really hate it when you do that. Maybe I wonder what's behind that. Maybe got yelled at work. Maybe lost a job. Maybe she was with kids all day long and the kids were screaming and bad, and he walks in and she's at the end of her rope. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm at the end of my rope, you're not going to get my best stuff. It's usually the junkier stuff. So trying to understand what we've been through is really going to be pretty critical. And again, for what am I sorry? Now, this is where it gets huge. This is where we're going to now come back and move towards the other person. For what am I sorry, and what am I willing to apologize for and ask forgiveness for? Maybe it was just my tone. Maybe it was some sarcasm that I used. Maybe it was hurtful words. Anyway, you get the gist of it. And then the last question I think is very important. Looking back, if I could do it over again, if I could rewind this, what would I do differently? And I find that even asking that question in counseling is really huge, because it takes a little while, and some of them say nothing, and then they sit there a little bit longer, because I usually don't just go, oh, okay, well, nothing, I guess that's great. There's usually something. Is it really all their fault, or is there anything that you could have done different? Well, maybe if I hadn't badgered him or her so long, maybe I should have, after the first time I said, why did you do this, instead of asking it 30 times, maybe once would have been enough, or maybe believing would have been good, or maybe saying, you know what, I need to take a break and I need to kind of set a boundary and go process this. So maybe there's usually plenty that we've done that we could do better the next time around. Any questions on this? Again, I don't want to go too far, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I would pull away, and the pulling away is real important. In other words, how you do it, and we'll get into types of processing probably in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but one person might be a real fast processor that's ready to get it on right now, and the other person might need some time to work through this. So allowing that time is real important. So yeah, you get alone. Now it's not get alone and don't come back. That's what most of us do. Is, you know, people that shut down go, whew, coast is clear. She's not mad. He's not mad anymore. I think I'll say, hey, what's for dinner, or you look nice today, and hopefully we won't talk about this ever again. That is what most people do, especially the shutter downer in the relationship. Having been a shutter downer in a relationship, that was my ploy, is how long can I, you know, I'll just go do things and do stuff, and it just never really works out that well, because then what you've got is this stuck resentment that's never been resolved. But yes, I would say get alone, and it's not how, you know, it's not looking on each other's piece of paper. It really is getting alone and working through this, because this could take days. This could take, and I think our tendency is to try to end the tension of this argument immediately, because I hate tension, and I hate it when you're mad at me, and I hate making you mad, or I feel horrible that you're so upset. But if you can get over that a little bit and allow this process to just, I want to say, mature or simmer or marinate a little bit, and let the tension be in the air. It's not much fun, but apologizing and getting to, I'm sorry, yeah, that you're, which means I'm sorry you're so mad at me. You know, I'm sorry you hate me right now. That's not really an apology. It's just, can we call a timeout, and can I get out of this, because I want us back lovey-dovey, kiss and make up kind of stuff. But the resentments stack up because there's no resolve. And so yes, taking the time and then coming back together and just saying, you know, I need to, and I'll talk about more styles of, you know, when you take this information, how do you form a conversation that's not attacking, that's actually owning your stuff without saying it's all my fault. Here's some things that here's what I'm struggling with, but I'm realizing here's some things that I did that I wished I hadn't done. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, well, no, I think I'd leave that second half off, but I am too, because I think what I would say is I need to go work on this. Now, I know my wife, and she is going to work on that, because we both love our relationship when we love each other, and as mad as we can be, we're still, I know she goes before God and says, reveal my heart to me. What have I, you know, what's going on in me? I'm doing the same kind of thing. So one of us might say, oftentimes one of us has said to the other, I need some time to process this. Now the person that is told that doesn't ever like that. I mean, that's like, really? You need time? I mean, we're right here, right now. It's so obvious to me. You know, the external processor, whoever was angry or coming in, usually has already processed this all day long, and then you walk in and it's like, ta-da, here we go. The other person just got blindsided by it, so it may take a while for them to catch up to where you're, for them to get quite as angry as you are. I mean, it takes us a while to get that angry. But I think, yeah, I need to take a break. I've got to process some of this. Right now, I'm really mad. I'm really upset by this, and I think if I could take a break and go work through some things, I'd like to try to. Maybe we can get together this evening, or this evening I'll tell you if I'm there or not. It may be tomorrow. I don't know. There's no time frame, and you don't want the pressure of saying, well, you said 6 o'clock. I mean, you know, it takes. I mean, it happens when it happens. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I can process sometimes in a matter of an hour, and I can process sometimes in a matter of a week. And so until I'm finished processing, I don't really have anything to contribute that's going to be good. So sometimes living in that tension for several days is real important. Now, it doesn't mean you ignore each other and you take the top half of the house and they take the bottom half. There's still love. I mean, the duty of love, or the action of love, still needs to be happening. There still needs to be, you know, can I get you a cup of coffee instead of get your own dadgum coffee out? You're the one that's, you know, we don't go into this hateful mode. I mean, the love that's more talked about in the Bible is this love of doing. It's not this love of feeling. So if we feel hurt, it doesn't mean we stop loving our partner. We don't feel love in that moment necessarily, or that warm, fuzzy tenderness, but we still need to be treating each other with respect and kindness like we would anyone. I mean, the love your neighbor as yourself, I mean, love your enemies, you know, that type of mentality. We still, at that point, you may be enemies. And there's nothing wrong with admitting, I'm really mad at you. I don't even want to be with you. I don't even want to see you right now. Doesn't feel very good, but if that's what you need to do and go work through your own stuff, then yeah. But to say, and I'm gonna go work on mine now, you go work. And when you go, I'm gonna have a beer with the guys and work through my issues. You go to your room and you're in timeout, and when when you can behave correctly, come on out. And I know you're not saying that. I'm just being facetious, but it is taking a break, saying I need to work through this. I've got to process this. Right now, I'm too angry to say anything of any value, and I need some time. I've said the words to Teresa, I need to let me sleep on this. Right now, I'm way too irrational to even give you any more words. Maybe a good night's sleep will help me become more rational. Maybe I'll be this angry in the morning. I don't know. Well, she comes and says, "Hey, I've been working. I'm kind of yeah." I think the first question is this a good time to talk? I know we had kind of a riff last night or this morning. Is this a good time to talk? And you may say, you know what, I hadn't even thought about it, which is now going to make her even angrier that she's done all this work and you haven't. But at the same time. And you might want to just say, I'm disappointed. I've been working my rear end off on this thing. Please take this more seriously. I'm very upset. Maybe we can talk tonight. So now it's beefed up a little bit, I would say. But I still think it's a bad time to try to talk through this, because then the poison stuff comes out, not the brokenness of confession or the realization or a contrite heart. Instead of, again, moving from this arrogant, judgmental, angry place, we need to move to a much more humble, compassionate, less angry place. Going to listen, not to attack. Going to hear. Yes? Yeah, I think so. I think I hear what you're saying. I think when there's an understanding of a particular hurt or loss, to actually go, that's where you see, it's like, do I understand their perspective? Coming from, it would sound like this, and this may sound ridiculous, I'm just going to make it up on the fly, but, it's not saying, knowing that you were, really, that you're so broken and messed up, staying away from that, but just saying, I can understand from where you've been. I can see how you could see this as hurtful, and I'm sorry, And so if that's what you're saying, instead of, you've got all this junk to go deal with, you've got a lot of work to do, and I really don't, because my junk's a little bitty and your junk is really big. That's not going to go over real big. But I think there's truth in that. In every relationship, our brokenness are at different levels in different areas. But I think but having compassion and understanding that someone who was abused, for example, as a child, or hurt in other ways that I won't be explicit with, to expect them to be rational when they feel like they've gone back to that reality, and they project onto you possibly what someone did to them. Understanding that will help you have more compassion for their brokenness. Does that help any? Is that kind of what you're saying? Well, I think it depends on the depth of it. In other words, if somebody, I'll just give an example of a couple where the guy called and said, "Hey, what you doing?" And then what they heard was, "What are you doing right this second? Are you using your time wisely? Are you being foolish with your time?" That's what they heard. That came from somewhere else. What the guy meant was, "Hey, what up?" And so, I've had couples come in with those types of things, and I tell them, we can spend thousands of dollars on counseling, or you can just change your question. One's going to cost you nothing. Instead of saying what are you doing, to say, "How's your day going?" If that doesn't trigger that response, I think it's a lot easier to just change the question. Now, if it's much deeper than that, and it's permeating other areas of your relationship, then going to work individually, probably with a counselor, to make that area less sensitive would probably be in the long-term best interest of your marriage. But if it's something that just came up and it was like that came out of nowhere kind of deal, and I haven't really seen that before, I would go for I'm a counselor. But I tell couples, you got one or two choices. We can do this for about 2 years and try to help her hear something different, or him hear something different what you meant, or just change what you say. Would you be willing to instead of saying that, say that. Does that make sense? So I think but if you find yourself tippy-toeing around all the time because I'm afraid if what I say will set them off or whatever, then that's a deeper thing. I think that really is something that needs to be dealt with, with a professional that can help you guys, come to some understanding of that. That's a great question though, because I see different levels of that every day. And it's a question of what's the simplest solution without enabling something, and that's a tough thing to answer just on a one-off thing. But thank you for asking that, because I think that's good. Anybody else? Yes. Yeah, I think you build, and you build trust. Yeah, like you're saying, you build trust over time. When you realize after 50 times that they don't mean that, then you can start, even if they slip up sometime and say, hey, how's your day going? They almost went there, but they're trying, and you can extend grace if you want to. But anyway, that's good. Thanks. Anyone else? I think this is heavy stuff. I think this gets into, yeah. Yeah, I have two tricks. Well, first I have this rabbit that I could get out of my hat if I had a hat. No, I think there's two keys. One is how you leave, and then one is how you come back together. And you ask how you come back together, but how you leave is critical. If you storm out and you get in the car and you squeal out, if your partner has ever felt feelings of abandonment, then they're going places you don't want them to go. I wonder if he's ever coming back. I wonder if this is it. He may be going straight over to the divorce attorney's office, or find another woman or another man. Does that make sense? So the leaving part is critical of, I'll be back. I'd say you could look them in the eyes and say, I'm so mad at you, I don't know what to do, but I love you and I love our relationship and I need some space. So I will be back. I'm just going to go ride, or I'm going to ride out to the lake, or I'm going to go see a movie or whatever, but I'll be back. That tells your partner they matter, and you're not just out of here. You figure out where I'm going, and I'll call you when I call you, because some people even don't come back. And so they've either had that happen, possibly if they're very afraid of abandonment, a parent that maybe threatened to leave and came back, and then one day left and never came back. Now you've triggered them back to that. So the leaving is critical, especially if there's some abandonment or betrayal type issues from the past. Now the coming back part is very important. I have people practice in my office, even when it's all staged in the office. I still have them say, is this a good time to talk? I've got some stuff that I'm struggling with and I'd like to talk about it. Is this a good time? Because I think what that already is communicating is you matter. Your time matters. This is not me trying to control something. I'm trying to, and the answer may be, let me finish. I got 10 more minutes of work, or I've got a phone call I've got to make, and then you'll have my undivided attention. The key then is being reliable and actually coming and saying, okay, now I'm ready to talk. But I think is that kind of what you're asking? I think it's better than them going, are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Because I think that adds pressure. Because if you're almost ready and somebody says, are you ready yet? Now you're not. Now there's more resistance. But I would say the onus is on the person that left to come back or communicate and just say, you know what, I'm still working on it. I know I told you I'd be back. I'm back, but I'm not ready yet. But I'm closer, and I am working on it, which tells your partner we matter. But I don't want to come in prematurely and get into junk. I've got more time. God is working on my heart in an area, and I need more time. But that still says you matter, and we're working on this. I haven't abandoned the issue, and I'm not waiting for the coast to clear so that we can pretend like things are good. And then we're going to move back in again on this question, but the one before this, what am I sorry for? Am I willing to apologize and ask for forgiveness? And so that's where we're gonna get to where when there's an apologies to me is not enough, or saying I'm sorry and you go okay, that doesn't do it, or I accept your apology. That's pretty good. That's certainly the right direction. There's been a confession and an apology, but I think and the forgiveness piece of this is critical. Even the wording of the forgiveness piece, and I love working with couples, but I'll stop them in the middle of a forgiveness if they go, well, I hope you can forgive me. Well, that's nothing. I mean, that's I hope you can get over yourself and someday forgive me. That's no. I want to hear, would you please forgive me? I mean, it's really, I use the analogy of it's like your head's on the chopping block and they've got the sword and you're saying, would you forgive me? Instead of, I hope you know, I'm standing back here because you got a sword in your hand. I hope you can forgive me. If not, I'm out of here. The other is, would you please forgive me? It's a request that takes a lot more humility. And I don't mean the bad kind. I mean, it really is, would you please forgive me? Do you see the difference? One is just, well, you know, if you get a chance, you know, it'd be great if you could forgive me. That'd be kind of cool, you know. But the other is really a request of moving forward. And what I see the difference is in counseling is one is very, I can forgive you. That's nothing. I mean, but when there's a request and it's granted, I see a whole countenance change in both partners. If a guy is apologizing to the woman and saying, would you please forgive me? When she says, I forgive you, I'm telling you, everything has changed. It literally is beginning now to heal, and that resentment is off the table. Doesn't mean you won't remember it, and then you can deal with it again. And the forgiveness is a process. It's not like, I have forgotten it. I'm just like God. I remember your sins no more. Well, we have a phenomenal memory of our sins. We're like elephants. I think God has a pretty good memory too. He's just chosen not to hold us accountable for our sins. That's what I think he does. Now, maybe he really forgets. I don't know, that'd be pretty cool. But anyway, so I hope, does that answer your question about how to come back? I think it's coming back with more, I mean, if you don't have your heart changed to where you're willing to come back and listen rather than just attack, it doesn't mean you have to come back and say it's all my fault, unless it is, but you know, but it's coming in with an attitude not of dominance, it's coming in with an attitude of humility and again, a contrite heart of just saying, we need to talk this. I care about you, and I know we're at odds. I feel distant. Is this a good time to talk about things? Because I can see that you're hurt, and I want to talk about it or whatever. But it's more invitational that way, I think. But yes, I do think it's the person that pulled away that comes back and actually initiates it. Yes. I get a second home. You're going to be gone for a long time. Yes, I would say the answer is I appreciate what you're saying. I hear you. I need some time to process this, and then I'll come back when I am ready. I mean, again, if you take a couple who's gone through an affair and the guy, let's say the guy had the affair. He can get there pretty quick. You know, would you forgive me? You know, and the woman has been through, well, all kind of stuff and betrayal and I don't know what to do. And I mean, so I've had people ask for forgiveness and the other person say, I'm not ready to forgive you. And it's not out of spite necessarily. Sometimes they're angry, but they're not where you are. I mean, it's, you know, you can think of all the analogies in the world, but yeah, I think you absolutely, when I'm working with couples, I can tell usually, not that I'm clairvoyant, but usually when somebody's not ready to forgive and they say, I forgive, I go, are you really ready to forgive? Because that seems so quick and but you've got such a tentative look in your eye, and they go, well, not really, I just wanted to do the exercise. And I go, don't do the exercise. I mean, if you need time, take the time that you need to process this. You go spend some time with God and go, Lord, give me a heart of forgiveness. But then again, you got to come back. And if you can't forgive, you can't forgive. I mean, I would say, you know, there are people that I've seen that just cannot forgive. And that's going to be a problem. And that's not agreeing to disagree. That really is, I can't forgive you, and that's another whole topic. But I would say, yeah, if he's a quick processor and he's sorry and asking for your forgiveness and you're still overwhelmed by the whole thing, you need that time. But there's an honorable way to say that rather than, how dare you? You know, it's more, thank you, I hear what you're saying, I can't process that quickly, I need some space, I need some time, but I will work on this. I will go to, you know, just assuring him that you appreciate the gesture, you're just not ready to return it or to grant forgiveness. And then you go work on your heart with God. Yeah, I don't think it's a quick process. I really don't think so, and I can't speak for Teresa, although it'd be fun to. But I can say we're learning to take longer to resolve, and I like it better. I think when we get there, we're there, or we're as there as we're going to get. But if we try to hurry this up and get it over with to stop the tension, we're going to miss a lot. But if I can really come back and go, you know what, I do forgive you, or for her to come back and say, I do forgive you, I believe her, because it didn't happen that quick. Because now she can process slow and internally, or she can process on a dime like what Doug can do. And I don't know who I'm arguing with at any particular time, but I've seen Teresa, and when we've had a real argument, process so quickly and maturely, and I can't do that. I'm much more the flood out, I need some space kind of thing. So, but taking the time. I don't, yeah, this doesn't have hurry written all over it to me. To me, if it takes 3 weeks, it takes 3 weeks. Because I want it done. If it takes me 3 weeks to really forgive, or 3 months is a long time. It's not that long in an affair, to be honest with you. I mean, it may take a while to forgive for something that's that much of a betrayal, but if it's, you hurt my feelings, if that takes 3 months, that might be, we need to work on why that's taking so long. Then again, we're all different, and God's created us differently, and we've all come from different hurtful type places, and it may take 3 months. Yeah, and you'll even find that in the middle of this, you'll find more information that's going to make you madder. I thought you just meant that. You really meant I'm a complete loser? I mean, I thought I was just a partial loser, And so then you've got to go back and just say, I need some more time to process that. You learn new information sometimes in these conversations. But to go back and just say, you know what, I need to process that. And for the external fast processor, that's miserable. But it's not like give permission. Y'all are adults. You don't need to give each other permission to take the time. You set a boundary and say, I need to take some time. I need to process this. Yes, ma'am. Am I assuming anything, or is there actual evidence? Let's say I said get a life. Okay, if I said it to both of y'all at the same time, you both would hear it differently. One of you might go, oh, you get a life, take it very light. And one of you might really take it deeply, because maybe you've heard that from somebody else that was hurtful, saying, get a life, get out of here. Okay, so is there any evidence that I really meant to hurt you? That's really more what I'm saying. Are you assuming I'm trying to hurt you? And if so, is there any evidence? And then one of the next questions is to ask me, is that what you meant? So when it says, what did they mean, you've got to ask them to know what they did mean. Does that make sense? So that's what I meant by that question. You may have, I may have, it's a different, yeah, that's not what this question means. That's a great point. And that's a completely different thing of you've got different things to work through. This is really more when somebody says something that means one thing and you hear another, and you say, I know you meant to hurt me. No, I really didn't. I really was just wanting to see, like go back to what you doing. Is there any evidence that he or she was trying to manage your day, or is there anything that you're assuming? Yeah, I'm assuming that you're doing what somebody else has done. Is there any evidence? No. What did they really mean? I don't know. I maybe need to ask them. That's more what I meant. That's a great question, though, because you can take this, into any. And again, as you're going through situations, this is not going to fit every situation. There's holes all in it. It works for a lot of situations. But I was working with a couple the other day, and she said, well, this one doesn't fit. I said, skip it. Go to the next one, because something's going to fit here in a minute. What am I blaming him for? We're probably going to get to that one. Is there anything from my past that's increasing my reaction to this? We're probably going to get to that one. So if it doesn't apply, don't throw the whole thing away and say, oh, this isn't for me. Go to something that does. Yeah, and that would be a problem. That's another whole dynamic of somebody that's just I'll own it. It's me. It's all about me, and I'm so sorry. I'm so bad. And you'll notice the word I comes up a lot. I'm the problem. That's false humility. That's false guilt. That's actually manipulation for a lot of people. I don't know your mom. I don't know what she's doing. But for those, so that's not going to fit into this very well. That's another issue, I think, in and of itself. But people again, when we feel, well, it goes back to the people-pleasing thing. It's a very controlling thing, and it can be. I remember I heard a guy on the radio. It actually helped me, and he was saying, regret a lot of regret. I'm so bad. It sounds good and it sounds humble, but it's arrogant. It's a lot of pride. I'm so bad. It's all about me. Look how bad I am. I'm such a sinner. I'll never amount to, it's really, let me take this from you and let me make this all about me. And then that's a mess. And that's really me trying to control you and make you go, oh, no, you're not. No, it's not all. Now I've manipulated you. Now you're telling me how great I am. And so you see what I'm saying? It just gets messy. That's a great point. Yeah, this isn't for that. There's institutions that are for that, I believe. But
they need the $1,000 route.
yeah, they're going to need several years and somewhere. Any other questions on this? Because I'm not going to be able. Let me see if I can get to something a little bit more. I wanted to get at least get started on. Let's see, we're about out of time. This is where I wanted to. I'll tell you what. We'll do something that we did the other day. I kind of fleshed out. Well, flesh is maybe the wrong word for this one because it's going to actually have the word flesh in it. So yeah, fleshed out. That's the fleshing out. But I was showing you guys the feelings chart and how there's a benefit on the right-hand side of the feeling and the impairment. And then I think the comment that you were making just, isn't that, don't these benefits move us towards Christ, which I would say they do. But the impairment side, resentment or self-pity or apathy or anxiety is going to lead us to our flesh, and they're going to start compiling. You're going to see hurt leading to fear, leading to shame. All of a sudden it gets this conglomeration of junk. But I think if we're hurt, then we can name that woundedness and we can go to God and say, you have borne my pain and you've borne, or shame, you have borne my shame. Help me believe what you say is true and accept your forgiveness and hand this to you. That's going to lead us to a deeper, more honest relationship with God. Going over to this impairment side of this toxic spiraling down just leads to more flesh, feeding more flesh, and it gets to be a mess. So I just wanted to show you guys, we had kind of talked about this, and I said, it would be great if we had more columns on the deal. So I just want to show you this is where I'm going with it. Where I want to go next time is really moving towards understanding, as we showed this before, that we've got a situation, we've got thoughts, we've got feelings, and we've got actions, but the belief, as I've mentioned in here before, the belief really is the overriding theme that's going to determine all of this. Okay, so if I believe that I'm worthless or inadequate, I'm going to see situations and I'm going to hear comments through that grid. If I believe that I am forgiven and God cares for me and I'm not a beaten slave but a chosen child of the King, I'm going to see situations and hear words through a completely different grid than the feelings of inadequacy or worthlessness or invisible. Does that make sense? So I want to start there. I really don't want to just jump into it because we don't have any time, but that's where I want to go for next week. But I would encourage you to take this, I call it a conflict resolution worksheet, and this week, whether something takes you to a negative place, an angry or sad or hurtful place this week or not, try to think of something in the last few months. Shouldn't be hard for most of us, where something has gotten you down, and start working through this. Again, this is not the kind of thing that you'll need a piece of paper for the rest of your life. I would say most people that I work with, they take the paper, they keep it in their hip pocket or their purse, they do it, but after a couple of weeks, it goes through your head. You just start asking yourself these questions. So it's not so that you'll have paper all the rest of your life. I don't sell paper. I just want you to get this process of, I'm angry with you, what's going on in me. And so then if you can work through this, the ends of this, of what am I willing to say I'm sorry for or apologize for and ask for forgiveness, then when you come back together, you can really mend and heal and build your relationship, not cut it down and destroy it. It's really an intimacy builder. It really is a trust builder in your relationship. For a man to hear his wife or a wife to hear her husband say, I was wrong. Some of y'all have never heard that, or some of you, or maybe it doesn't come very often where a guy or a girl can say, I made a mistake. I did mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to kill you. I didn't mean to annihilate you, but I was jabbing at you. I was angry and I was shooting. I was kind of hitting back at you. Would you forgive me for that? I'm so sorry. That leads to such honesty and vulnerability, but you've got to provide a safe place to where the answer isn't, well, I knew it was you all along. It took you long enough. That's the first time you've ever really apologized. Not real safe. What I want you guys to do is listen a lot more, and if we can get to the place where we can get confessional and talk about what we did that was hurtful and that we're sorry, please, when they ask for forgiveness, if you're at that place, give them your forgiveness. And you'll see that the stack of resentments that feels a mile high breaks down pretty quickly because there's hope. Now you're starting to see the intimacy in the relationship and trust in the relationship build, and you know you can do this again. And so for couples that come in with stacks of stuff, we just work through it, but the stack disappears pretty quickly. But then there's enough training to where when the next one comes up, you knock it out. You don't let 5 or 6 of these stack up again. You try to get more. You see the benefit of this, and you try to move towards each other more quickly. You take the break more quickly, and you say, I need to think about this. Or sometimes people just say stuff and then they leave the room, and then I would say then go through whether it's an official timeout or I need some space, or you find yourself saying something you kind of a hit and run, and you've gone to your different. You're kind of grumbling or whatever, to start going through this stuff and try to come back later and say, last night when I said that, I was in a pretty crappy mood, and I need to apologize for that. I said some things that I wished I hadn't said. I said this. I didn't mean it. I just was, this happened. Would you forgive me? So it may be a real formal meeting. It may just be, like I say, a hit and run kind of thing. But I think learning to think this way, it gets us away from, I'm angry with you and this is all your fault. You're responsible for my unhappiness, and if you would just get fixed, I'd be okay. And it brings us together to where we both have responsibility, and it builds the relationship. And it's not about being right and wrong. Again, if one's right and one's wrong, the marriage just took a hit. Now, I'm not saying if you make a mistake, you did something wrong, but needing to win the argument will really hurt your relationship. Being able to both win and mutually meet in the middle on this is what's going to build your relationship. Let me close this in a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for this day. I just thank you for all these questions. And Lord, there's so much going through minds and different ways to apply these things. Lord, I pray that you will appropriate this information into the areas of their minds and their hearts that you want it in. Father, I pray for each relationship and marriage that is represented in this room, Lord, that you will give us healing, that you'll give us individually insight as to what is it you're trying to do in our lives, not how do we fix this other person, how do we listen to you more, how do we build a greater relationship with you, how do we believe that you do love us in the truth of the gospel, that you see us sinless. I think that's so difficult, Lord, but yet give us the grace to increase what we believe that your word is true, and that our past will define us less and less and have less and less power. Lord, I pray that you're a powerful God. We're not just praying into the air, we're praying to our Creator, Father. I pray in the name of Jesus that you will teach us these things and lessen the hurts of our past. Help us to deal with the ones you want us to deal with, but I just pray that they will not define us and that we can be defined by you as you have created us. And so I pray that in the name of Jesus. Amen.